Hi everyone, my name is Jacob D'Souza. I want to welcome you to Atkins Realis' Leadership Series, where today I'm going to be joined by the CEO of our Minerals and Metals practice, Cesar Inostroza. We're going to talk about a lot of things, cover a lot of ground, primarily how mining can help in the quest to net zero. Canada, like a lot of countries, is committed to net zero targets. About 80% of the world's GDP is committed to some target or another right now. In Canada, we have a few targets. We've got a 2035 target for a net zero grid. We've got a 2030 target for interim carbon reduction targets, and we have a 2050 target for overall net zero for our society. So we're going to speak to Cesar today about the role that mining, which is traditionally an industry you wouldn't associate with net zero, can help play toward these goals, and in fact why it's actually critical. Hi Cesar, thanks very much for joining us today. I want to start off with perhaps a high-level thought here. When people think about mining and net zero, the layman, the average person, they would see them as two distinct circles and not really having any intersection if this were a Venn diagram. But I hear you talking a lot about mining and net zero, I hear the industry talking a lot about it, and we talk a lot about it as a company. So can you tell me where that intersection lies? Where do those two circles of net zero and mining collide?
Yeah, so I think you have to realize that without the mining industry, there will be no net zero future. The net zero future passes through the mining industry because a lot of the materials that are needed to support the transformation of our economies require minerals and metals to be part of the transition. So I'll give you examples. For example, if you want to electrify the grids around the world, that needs copper and nickel and aluminum, you're able to do it. If we want to build electric vehicles and batteries, it needs lithium, nickel, graphite. Those are all elements that are in the ground. Those are elements that we need to extract from resources to bring them to and support the development of the net zero agendas that most countries have around the world. So in my view, the mining industry is a fundamental part of the transition, and without it expanding itself and growing with the demand, there will be no net zero future. Part of the equation. It's part of the solution to achieve the objectives that we have as a society overall to make this the new future for our whole planet.
So Cesar, you talked about just now the growth that the mining industry is experiencing. You could say experiencing, you could say facing, whether it's a challenge or not. So can you talk to me a little bit about some of the things that the industry needs to do to meet the challenges?
Yeah, I mean, there's many challenges in any kind of large extractive type of industry. Some of the challenges are the fact that most minerals and metals projects take a long time to get developed. It's not a matter that we decide tomorrow to start producing copper from a resource and we'll be having a plant available in 2-3 years. Most mining projects take anywhere between 10, 15, 20 years to get off the ground. So the challenges around that is the fact that you need aligned regulatory environments in order to support the development of promoters to build these facilities. You need to streamline, for example, the approval processes that exist across multiple jurisdictions to be able to actually foment the promoters to actually get the permits to build these things. You need financing available in an environment where financing is difficult to find. And you need to have the wherewithal with the technical capabilities to not only find the resource, exploit the resource, but then build the facilities to actually transform the mineral into resources that can be used in industry. And then you need the capability to actually operate these things for a long term. So it's multifaceted challenges across the industry that we're seeing in earnest. And the challenge that we have today is because the demand is growing so fast versus supply, there's a scarcity of those kinds of resources. There's a misalignment across the world, and in certain jurisdictions even more, around regulatory approval processes. And those are the kinds of challenges that we need to kind of keep working at it to kind of establish a way that the industry can actually flourish in the future to actually meet your first point, which is the net zero agenda, which is to deliver the minerals and the metals to support the electric vehicle battery development and the electrification of all the grids that we want to do around the world.
Can you talk to us a little bit about some of the things that we at Atkins Realis do as a business to help our mining clients to conduct their operations in a much more sustainable way than perhaps they were done in the past?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think one of the fundamental things people have to realize is that the mining industry is an extractive industry. So it will have impacts on wherever they get implemented, wherever the plant is built, wherever the mine exists, there is an impact. Our responsibility as engineers at Atkins Realis and project delivery people, folks that actually can help our clients, is to take the sustainability agenda in developing a mining project in the most sustainable and responsible manner. Is to support our customers to involve indigenous relations, for example, across most of the projects. There was a saying here in Canada that says all mining projects pass through indigenous lands. And it's true. Mines don't exist downtown Montreal. They don't exist in downtown Toronto. They're in remote places where peoples live, indigenous peoples' lands, and we have to keep very conscious of that reality. So to me, in a layman's term, we have to work with all the stakeholders, and Atkins Realis does that. We provide the glue to allow the stakeholders to come together and coalesce towards delivering the assets and the installations that are required ultimately to provide a facility that will transform the mineral into a finished product that can be used in the industry.
So Cesar, you talked about just now examples of sustainability and how we think about sustainability and encourage our clients to think about it. So can you give me an example of some specific things that clients have done to act on our recommendations and our advice to actually make their mining operations more sustainable?
Yeah, sure. For example, we work with customers in defining the sustainable means of processing and treating their tailings and residues. We design tailings ponds in a sustainable manner in order to allow the facility to operate in a responsible manner. We look at energy conservation. In a lot of our projects, for example, there's a high demand in terms of energy consumption by most of these facilities. So we're constantly looking at alternatives and options to reduce the energy footprint that a facility will have in order to produce the outcome. Other cases, for example, just recently we were talking about, we're building a big mine, a big facility in Brazil with significant amount of conveying infrastructure, big, large conveyors. And we've built into that energy recovery systems. So when the conveyor is coming down the hill, we're recovering the energy through gravity to put it back into the grid of the mine, therefore reducing the need to produce new energy to drive the facilities. So it's all over the place. Water management. One of the big things with mines is but some of the mines are located in areas where there's no water. It's in Nevada, for example, it's arid. Northern part of Chile is very arid. So we're always constantly looking at ways to reuse, reduce, recycle water consumptions, therefore optimizing the footprint of the facility in terms of the sustainability footprint of what the plant is trying to do.
So to wrap things up, Cesar, I guess all of this being considered, what would you say to someone who's still a little bit skeptical and who's worried in a macro sense about the impact that mining has on the planet? What thoughts would you leave them with as a leader in the field?
I think in a macro sense, I would like to attract people to our industry as an industry of the future. It's an industry that for many years has had a bit of a stigma about what it is and what it does. I think people need to realize the importance of the mining industry to the well-being of the planet and able to achieve our objectives in delivering the net zero agenda. So I think it's an industry that's attracting a hugely diverse number of people to come into, more women, the younger population of our professionals, the indigenous populations. Funny enough, I was sitting at a table just recently with our mining team. There's like 15 nationalities. The cultural diversity of our group of our industry is tremendous because it attracts people from all over the world because we can move around those resources anywhere they might be needed for projects. So it is an industry of the future. I really encourage our younger population to start thinking about this industry as a way to make a living for the rest of their professional lives.
Cesar, thanks so much for your time today and for speaking to me. I think it was very educational, and hopefully we've left people with a few thoughts if they weren't familiar with mining before, as to how they can think about this industry and think about the work that we do and our clients do going forward.
My pleasure. Anytime.